How many years have we suffered with ridiculous draws, big teams in early rounds? Well, finally, our luck comes due. This is today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is indeed the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It is greatly appreciated. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Hope you've had an absolutely fantastic start to your week. I certainly did. Great day yesterday. I was surprised with tickets to go and see some stand-up comedy, which was basically like an evening where comics practice their material for like future shows, and all of a sudden Ricky Gervais is there, which was kind of a crazy experience. So that was a surprise. It's very funny, and whatever show is coming up, it sounds like it's going to be very funny. So that was a great evening, on top of a really busy day actually of work, where there's going to be some stuff later on today that you'll see as a result of some of the work that's gone on. Recorded a podcast with John Cross. You can see that. That's out now on the Seeing Red unofficial Arsenal podcast YouTube channel. Myself and John talked about Brentford. We talked about Wigan. We talked about lots of stuff. So, really, really looking forward to the potential for maybe some big benefits across all competitions. So we look forward to that. I hope you're doing good and well, as I say. Thank you so much, as all of you, for joining us in the chat box. Good morning to Ken, to Matt, to Mandy, Black Sharm. We've got Otti and Claire. We're Otti in the chat. I don't think I've spotted your name before this early. Knowledge and Rowan and Temmie. Brian in here. Tom and Ray with Grantley Poos. Yanis and Beanie Bun. Jeffrey and Arasilki and Thomas and Barry. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Greatly appreciate you being here. There is very much looking at, of course, our latest news and shows that we've got coming up. So looking forward and looking ahead to a game against, wait for it, Mansfield Town. Yes, that's who Arsenal have got in the next round of the competition. And looking ahead to what will be Arsenal's third lower division, lower league team. It's the best way to describe it without sounding like you're just really saying how bad they are. But lower division side, lower league opposition team, the third team in a row. After Portsmouth, put 4 past them. After Wigan, put 4 past them. And now Mansfield Town, which is just slightly above Nottingham. So it takes about like 2.5 hours from London to get the train there. So it's not too far. It's not too much of an issue in terms of travel. And, of course, another League One team. I think we're, 9-10 places above Wigan right now in League One. They're kind of mid-table there. But they did knock out Burnley at Turf Moor. They achieved what Arsenal achieved earlier this season by winning at Burnley. So they are by no means any mugs. And they will be playing away from home, of course, generates its own challenges. Playing on those pitches, of course, creates its own difficulties. And you can't play the same football that we saw, of course, Arsenal doing when they played against Wigan at the Emirates. So I don't expect the pitch to be in great condition. I don't expect Mansfield to put much effort into making the pitch in a great condition, because the greater condition they put the pitch in is more of a benefit for Arsenal. So it's a game I look forward to. Of course, as soon as the fixture is confirmed in terms of when the scheduling it will be, we'll talk about that on the channel, but it's set to take place on the weekend of the 7th and 8th of March. So that is that kind of free weekend that people assumed that we had free. It's when we would have done like a Dubai trip. If Arsenal were ever going to do one, probably would have been around then. But no, there's going to be that game in the Champions League. I think the third round, the last 16, of the Champions League will be after this game against Mansfield. So wherever we're going, it'll be Mansfield away and then hopping on a flight to somewhere in Europe, in Germany, Greece, or Italy, which are the 3 potential destinations, of course, that we could get. The other games in this round of the competition: Fulham against Southampton, Port Vale or Bristol City against Sunderland, Newcastle United against Manchester City, Leeds United against Norwich, Mansfield Town against Arsenal, Wolves against Liverpool, Wrexham against Chelsea, and West Ham United against Macclesfield or Brentford. So that is the draw. I think dream scenario, really. You could argue maybe more of a dream would have been getting the game at home, but I don't think beggars can be choosers, really. And when you see that Newcastle United will host Manchester City, and you see that Liverpool are going away and Chelsea are going away, I think ultimately Arsenal have done pretty well. But there's also plenty of ties there that keep some beatable teams in the competition for that. Yeah, it'll be Brentford. Sorry, this is kind of the draw that came out before the Macclesfield game. Brentford it was that beat Macclesfield 1-0. Very narrow victory, again showing that away from home against these teams lower down the table, you can't take anything for granted. They're not just a simple win. But yes, it means that West Ham or Brentford will be in the next round. It means that Fulham or Southampton or Port Vale, Bristol City or Sunderland will be in the next round. Leeds or Norwich will be in a quarter-final. It means one of, Wolves or Liverpool will be in a quarter-final. So lots of small teams potentially in the quarter-finals of the competition for Arsenal if they can get through past Mansfield that they would face in that quarter-final round. So, that's exciting. And Arsenal's cup journey continues this season. Into some other news. You may have seen this kind of claim doing the rounds on social media, and then what I find baffling these days is that some news organizations take the time to actually quote or give credit to some of these stories, which means then I have to talk about it on these shows because we talk about what's been reported across different networks. But yeah, you've probably seen these claims about Martin Odegaard and his future. I'm here to tell you that it's absolute rubbish. I don't really know what more I can really say about this other than the fact that Odegaard, I'm aware, is very happy at Arsenal, and Arsenal are very happy with Odegaard. Of course, there's frustrations around his injuries right now. He is frustrated that he can't be on the pitch more than he is right now, and having come back from the last injury and came back really, really well, and then he had a really good performance against Leeds when he came off the bench, got injured again, and now, of course, comes off the bench against Brentford, has a kind of game-changing performance, and then suffers that injury in the point that we consider, which, he was absolutely at fault for, no doubt about that, but should have been taken off after he took that kick, and it was proven that he should have been taken off by the fact that he was not in the team then for the game against Wigan. We'll hear from Mikel Arteta today regarding the press conference. But just before I go to that, I want to tell you about these pre-season plans. Now, first of all, I have to give credit to Darren Arsenal, as well as Arsenal fixtures on social media, who discussed yesterday this kind of news around Arsenal's pre-season. While it's not like fully confirmed or anything at this stage, but certainly from doing a little bit of digging around this story, what was discussed yesterday about pre-season is certainly heading in that direction. Arsenal are looking at a pre-season, not necessarily even a tour, but some pre-season games much closer to home, kind of in Europe, and particularly Dublin appears to be a potential location for one of the Arsenal pre-season fixtures. That's not confirmed. It's kind of just talks at the moment, and still a lot needs to be done before that is signed off. But Dublin looks like a potential destination for Arsenal this summer. It is one of the shortest gaps between a summer tournament and the new season. In fact, the Premier League has had to be delayed to August 22nd. It's the latest, I believe, the Premier League has ever started, August 22nd. It's usually kind of the 12, even 14 days before that. But because of the World Cup and the World Cup final taking place on, July 19th, I believe, there's only 33 days between the end of the World Cup final and the start of the Premier League season, even though the Premier League has been pushed back to August 22nd to start. So, the idea that even if we have kind of players playing in these pre-season games, how many of them will be back for those? Of course, players are entitled to, I think, 4 weeks off during the summer, at least 4 weeks, unless they forego that. But it's always kind of encouraged for players to take those breaks. But yes, there's a 33-day gap between the World Cup final and the start of the Premier League season. So you won't have to wait long between footballing periods. You won't go long without football being around. Usually it's kind of 2 months. And of course, there's also a transfer window amongst all of that as well going on, which of course opens in July and closes at the start of September. So much going on this summer. World Cup, but a kind of a limited preseason. But yeah, usually we see them go off to Asia or the States, but that's not expected to happen. You could be Chelsea. Chelsea, I believe, are going off to Australia from the sounds of things, which would be an incredible decision to make during a World Cup year where there's such a small gap. But that's the decision that they're taking, I believe. So yes, but Arsenal expected to stay much closer to home from how things are transpiring at the moment, which I'm in some ways, it's my first opportunity. I think that I'm going to be able to hopefully go on a preseason program, but I would have loved for it to been further afield. But in some ways there are benefits to this, and fans in if it is to be, and it's, as I say, it's not confirmed yet, but if it is to be in a place like Dublin, then fans in Dublin who maybe have not gotten much of an opportunity to see Arsenal play will get an opportunity. Maybe we've seen Arsenal, go to Finland or Sweden. We saw them go to Finland in 2013. They went to Helsinki. They went to Gothenburg in Sweden in 2016. So maybe there'll be a Scandinavian game as well, but we don't know. That's just pure speculation on that side of things. But Arsenal have done it before during pre-season as well. But yes, this expansion of the World Cup is causing kind of an even bigger and longer tournament to delay the start to some domestic leagues. But yes, Mikel Arteta will address the press today, and we'll hear about those latest updates on player injuries, Calafiori being the big one, and kind of hearing any more about the details as to why he had to be taken off before the game against Wigan. So that's obviously a big frustration right now, and one that's in focus. Martin Odegaard as well, and getting the latest on him and how ready he will be, if at all, for this game against Wolves. And Kai Havertz, how his recovery is going, when we might expect to see him back. And Max Dowman was spotted, of course, in training as well, which was a big boost. So will he be close to be coming back soon? But that Mansfield Town draw, you'd think, and you look at that and go, well, if Max Dowman could be fully fit and back and ready, that could be a great opportunity, maybe even for a start in the competition there. So he started in the League Cup game against Crystal Palace, I believe. So why not have the opportunity to start in the game against Mansfield Town in the FA Cup if he is fit? So yes, lots to come, lots of stuff to be asked regarding Mikel, and so you can keep up to date with that in the early afternoon press conference, and all the updates will be available on the football.london website, so make sure you go over there, otherwise you might miss out. And you don't want to miss out on anything these days, especially not the discounts that you could get by going to nordvpn.com/Gooner and getting money off the #1 VPN service that you could possibly get your hands on. So by going to nordvpn.com/Gooner, get yourself that significant discount for a 1 or a 2 year plan. There is a 30-day money back guarantee on top of that as well. But if you will happen to stay with them for a bit longer on one of those 2 plans and you read those details, you might find there's a little extra something in there for you. Maybe you can do some extra shopping on Nord. You'll know what I mean. If you click the link, go and find out what that's about. That's nordvpn.com/Gooner. Save yourself from those data criminals that are trying to steal what you're looking at on the internet, particularly when you're in a public Wi-Fi zone, or maybe you're abroad somewhere and you want to hop back digitally to the UK on your laptop, your mobile, or indeed your tablet. Well, you can do that by going to nordvpn.com/Gooner, getting yourself a significant discount off this plan, and then doing such a thing as changing your geo-digital location, just like that. Thank you so much, as always, for Nord for supporting the channel. We really do appreciate you and them and everybody else for continuing to support us by signing up. They wouldn't still be here if you didn't enjoy the service so much. So you can see, endorsed by so many of you. Fantastic to see. Right, let's go to part 2, your questions and more, right after this. Right, this is part 2 of today's show, where we jump into the chat box. We get some of your thoughts, some of your feelings, and more. So let's do such a thing, shall we? Who did Spurs get in the car? Oh, it's a great question. Did I skip over? I must have skipped over Spurs. Let's get that slide back up again. I'm just going to peruse the Southampton, Port Vale, Bristol City, Sunderland, no. Newcastle, Manchester, no. Leeds United, Norwich City, Mansfield Town, Arsenal, no. Wolves, Liverpool, Wrexham, Chelsea, West Ham. No, that can't be right. I don't see. Do you see Man United there either? Man United, aren't they? That can't be right. 2 huge teams, they say there are, right? You'd be in the 5th round of the Cup, surely, if you're a big team. It's bizarre. There must be a mistake. I'll contact the FA and just see if they've made a mistake on that. Weird. Very strange, isn't it? Weird for the way their fans talk about themselves. Strange. Yes, Jerome says, Nord is actually a good VPN. Thank you for letting us know. I wonder. I wonder how on earth you may have got that tip. Roy says, Tom, if we make it to the FA Cup final, any idea when we would play Palace at home before or after the final, as it would be crucial? I believe the final is on the 16th of May. I will double check that. FA Cup final, which is the penultimate. So Arsenal play Burnley at home on the 17th. At the moment, if Arsenal were to make it to the FA Cup final, that would obviously be changed. So FA Cup final is on the May 16th. Now, you may have seen, I'm not going to use the guy's name, but you may have seen that there is a demonstration set to be planned on that day in London. So it could be quite chaotic that day. But we've been there before. I think it happened during the Nottingham Forest home game. And I think there was a load of London games on that day. And the games went ahead as planned and there was no issues. But it's set to be the FA Cup final on May 16th. Kai says, let's sit down. This is the first time we've been here once in 5 years. Let's sit down. Let's sit down. I am. Just checking. No, I am sitting down. Arthur says, hi, Tom. Have you seen a video of a man begging Arteta to sign a shirt for his son? There's a big argument in our forum. I don't know why there would be an argument about this story. How could you argue anything other than the person is doing anything other than harassing the manager, who is instructed, as are the players, not to roll down their windows by security always, who's got his family in the car, multiple other individuals in the car, in slow-moving traffic, and if you roll down your window for one person, it just encourages like a crowd or a swarm of people to do the same. So how on earth can there be an argument about this? I don't know how there could be an argument about this, Arthur, at all. I put a post up on Instagram about this yesterday. I'm trying to do more of that now. If I put my opinions out there, I'm trying to do it more on Instagram because X is a bit of a cesspool, really, but Instagram's a bit nicer. So yeah, if you want to follow me at Tom Canton Media, you can follow me over there. But I don't really get how anyone could argue anything other than it was pretty harassing behavior and he should accept when no is no, right? And obviously we also know, I'm not saying that this is what this person was doing, but we know that autograph selling is something that's prevalent in the game. There's a very famous clip of Pep Guardiola kind of giving some, it seems, people that are looking to do that a bit of a dressing down. So look, I don't really, I think it's just one of those where if you're not a big fan of Arteta, or if other fans of other clubs aren't big fans of Arteta, it's just an excuse to use this as kind of a bit of a stick to beat him with. It's not, it's become a story because of what people have tried to turn it into. But it's just, I agree with Izzy here. It's anything to find a way of criticising Arteta. He does absolutely nothing wrong in what he does. And what you'll see is, I bet what you'll see is kind of people putting out clips of other managers or other fans taking the time to sign shirts or anything, in response to saying, oh, look, this person can do it. It's so very, very different. It's so very, very, very different. And if you don't think that Mikel Arteta and the players take plenty of time to sign things, to speak with fans, to speak with individuals, not even of an Arsenal persuasion, but during preseason tours, during training camps, during kind of the walk into stadiums at times, it does happen. But the idea that this one incident should see any criticism going their way for this, I don't really see it. Let's go to let's scroll up in the chat box a little bit more to Lloyd, who says Pep does this all the time. No one talks about this. Only Arsenal gets media attention over useless things. I call it Gooner derangement syndrome. The hate is real. Look, the way in which Arsenal are talked about differently to other clubs is very, very clear and obvious, always. Thomas says, Tom, he wanted it signed for blind orphans that he's tutored on Sundays. Well, if that's the case, I don't think it necessarily would even change anything then, would it not? I don't think. There's no way of knowing that, even if it was. But I think in the video you can hear him say it's for his son, supposedly. But again, there's no way of knowing if even that was true. Like it's and that's, I say, he's just following the precautions that he's given. Amberley says, incredibly disrespectful to hassle someone who's driving their family home from the stadium. Exactly, 100%. Jim says, Tom, do you know anything about the young midfielder Valdepeñas? It looks like in the 19. Is he midfield? I thought he was more of like a fullback. Is he a midfielder? I thought he was a defender, not a midfielder. But I don't know loads about him, I have to say. But I thought he was like a defender who could play on the left, was my understanding of who he is. And just looking at his profile now, that does appear to be, yeah. So he can play centre-half or we can play left-back. If Arsenal sign Victor Valdepeñas, who there are good suggestions out there that Arsenal are indeed looking at him, well, I mean, that's surely the end of Miles Lewis-Skelly's career, right? Not that I feel that it should be or I want it to be. I don't. I think Miles Lewis-Skelly is incredibly talented and I think I hope he's got a big future at Arsenal. But if Arsenal sign another left-sided defender on top of having Calafiori, Nketiah, and Miles, I mean, it doesn't look great for Miles in that position, does it? So, yeah, I struggle highly to see that boding too well for Miles if Arsenal sign Valdepeñas. But maybe they see him more as a centre-half. But he's played the majority of his games this season at left-back. 12 games at left-back, 9 games at centre-half. So if they see him as a left-sided centre-half, maybe not. But again, it's not necessarily. And we can all say, look, Miles could play in midfield, but if we're honest, Declan Rice is going to play there. And if Declan Rice isn't there, Ezra or Marino would play there before Miles. So again, I just can't see that happening. Miles' future at Arsenal it's changed dramatically, in the last 6 months. Signed a new contract with the club, big season last season, but this season his form has not been as strong as it was. And I don't think that's necessarily his fault. I think that he's not been able to have the rhythm and the consistency of minutes that he had last season to be able to play into the way that he was playing last season. But also, as Mikey points out, he is just 19 years of age. There is only 19. So it's very hard to kind of make those sweeping statements. But I think it is fair to point out that a mid-20, early to mid-20s Calafiori, an early to mid-20s Nketiah, and a 19-year-old Valdepeñas, if he was to arrive, it no doubt does make it so that it's a hard scenario for him. Thomas says, Tom, should we have got Brentford? Would that be the most favourable as only beat Macclesfield 1-0 with an Owen goal? I think it's more to do with kind of the I think the pitches have a big part to play. I mean, you look at the Wolves game, you look at how Rob Edwards spoke about that Wolves win over Grimsby. These pitches make it exceptionally hard to play football. So very, very difficult to do so. Mark says, Miles has looked slower than last season and he seems to be late on some tackles. As I said, his form's just not there. It's really just not there at the moment. Just saying says, maybe Arteta might send him on loan to develop more and get more game time as well. I think that from looking at the point of view of a loan for Miles Lewis-Skelly, that might make a considerable amount of sense. If you think about Nwaneri right now, and I look at Nwaneri right now, he was an unused sub in their last 2 games recently since the Zerbi's been sacked. That as well, like loans do not guarantee you the outcomes that you want. They do not guarantee you the outcomes that you want. So very, very difficult. John says, with this transfer rumor, is there a possibility that the likes of MLS and Nwaneri are sold so the profit looks better on balance because of why the transfer system is set up? These transfers for players that have come through the academy are always really beneficial for a club like Arsenal because it's what's known as, not like officially, but just kind of the terminology is pure profit, like because you've not spent a transfer fee on them and then you're investing in them. Opportunity YouTube says, that does not make sense. MLS has nearly 2 years more professional experience than Real Madrid's prospect. Why should MLS be worried? Well, it does make sense, doesn't it? Because if you are, yes, he has 2 more years experience, but if you're on Miles right now, you've got Calafiori ahead of you, you've got Hincapié ahead of you, and Arsenal, instead of thinking, right, we've got enough players for that left-hand side now, we can stick with this group. Instead, they're going out and adding potentially a player that's the same age as you. Why wouldn't that be worrying? If you're in a job, right, and you're like in a team of 3, and the 2 people ahead of you are more experienced than you, and then suddenly the company hires someone of a similar age to you, and then potentially there's cuts coming up, you'd feel the most vulnerable alongside that person. But having them just signed in a football environment, it changes things, doesn't it? So I think it does make sense. I think it makes plenty of sense. Boyce says BS7 in the middle Saka in the middle looked decent, gets Noni in the team at the same time, whilst midfield has injury issues. This has to be the way forward. I think it's definitely something that we might see more of, because Arteta spoke afterwards in a way in which I got the feeling that he was quite happy in how it went. He talked about how surprised he was in the connections that had formed so quickly and the cohesion in that group. And maybe that's why he's been a little bit hesitant in the past to do it. But I'm curious to know if, like, that experiment and seeing how it surprised him, how he said it surprised him, how those connections formed, if in some ways it's changed his perspective on being a bit more experimental in the future, with other potential things like Miles in midfield, which he was clearly willing to do, but maybe like where he said like Martinelli is a centre forward, things like that. Has that experience made him or changed him in any way significant that he might be more palatable to trying things like that more so in the future? Opportunity says because MLS can play a part in midfield. But the problem is that he's not going to do that either, is he? Really? He's behind Rice. He's behind Marino. He's probably behind Ezza in the left 8 role. So he's 4th choice, if he's lucky, in that left 8 position. And he's now potentially, if we sign a Valdepeñas, could be considered 4th choice at left back. I don't understand how you can't be thinking that there's concern there about his future if you're 4th choice for the 2 positions that you could potentially play. So we can agree to disagree if you want, but I think the evidence is overwhelmingly against your argument in that case. Arthur says the question is if Calafiori's injuries continue, should we maybe be looking for another left back? And this is, I think, a good bit of nuance to the conversation, is if Calafiori can't stay fit, is the Valdepeñas signing potentially something that points towards a long-term thinking over Calafiori's fitness? Why did we sign Hincapié in the summer as well, with a view of signing him permanently next summer? Is that to do with a lack of faith in Calafiori's reliability to be fit and available? Maybe. Just saying says, especially because Saka is left-footed, right-footed, he can use both feet very well. Obviously, he's very strongly left-footed, but he can use his right foot. It makes him unpredictable, and I hope that he plays him in the midfield against Wolves. I actually did a piece this morning about the changes I would make against Wolves, and I put Saka in the 10 role. I would continue, if it was me, I would continue by playing him in that position. D says, I don't get how Norgard is playing even only a handful of minutes more than he is. Surely Arteta trusts him now after the elite performance that we've had when he's come in for us. Rice and Zubimendi need more rest. 100% D. You're absolutely spot on. I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. I talked about it on Potsy's channel the other day. I don't get why he's not getting more minutes. Arteta has been asked this, so he's not going, well, ask him, because he has been asked this. He feels as though his role goes beyond just what he does on the pitch, but I think he absolutely needs to be using Norgard a lot more. Backen says, I acknowledge the concern over Miles, but it would be baffling to let him leave. He's shown potential in off and on-field qualities, 100%. And that's where I am. I don't want Miles to go. I don't want us to sell Miles. I want Miles to succeed at Arsenal because I think he's an incredibly talented player. But it's just the acknowledgement of concern for his future based upon what Arsenal appear to be doing in that area in the market. That's the discussion. Chris says, Saka and Nolly clearly have great chemistry. It's clear they enjoy playing with one another. and they're close as well off the field. If Noni occupies defenders with his madness, Saka then has maybe total freedom. It's a great point. Both of those players tend to draw in attention from opposition players. Saka can get double or triple marked out of games. And the same happens with Noni. So if you play with both, that open spaces, and we saw those spaces open in the first half against Wigan the other day. I know it's only Wigan, with all due respect to them, but still, it definitely had something. There was something there that looked quite exciting. John says, do you think our midfield lacks creative ideas when around the box, like being cute with passing and movement? As for me, I think we look static and move straight passes. This is why I think Odegaard is so important in certain moments. And all I think you need to do is look at the first 10 to 12 minutes of the game against Brentford in the second half compared to the entirety of the first half. Eza, for me, is only good against low blocks in moments where he can provide like a magic shot from range or because he's better in transition. Eza, he's better in those open games, I think, against bigger teams. That's why I had such joy against Spurs in the derby. It was more of an open game. And I think those games, I think the Champions League, I think will help suit Eza a lot more as well. But against those deeper blocks, I think I'd rather have Odegaard. And you look at the way in which in those first 12 minutes when Brentford were sitting back, which was not really what they were doing in the first half as much, which was a little disappointing, therefore, to see Eza be so quiet to a degree. But you look at those first 12 minutes when Odegaard came off the bench and you look at the difference that was made. That's why I think that those little cute, he played a couple of nice little passes to Trossard and then obviously through as well to, I think it was with Rice as well on that left-hand side. So, yeah, that's what I want to see more. His thoughts on the idea of not banishing players even though they committed a huge mistake like Eza, and rather than playing through it. I think Eza was harshly treated after that Aston Villa game. Arteta claims that that's not what happened. Whether we believe him is obviously another question, but he claims that was not what happened, and it was just a case of the situation. So that's clear. The box says, Tom, with all due respect, we've seen Odegaard struggle heaps against low blocks. At no point did I say that Odegaard has not struggled against low blocks. But for me, he is the better option against them when it comes to low blocks than Eza has been this season. Nigel says, I like the way Norgard was pinging passes over the top like a bit of a quarterback. Yeah, and again, we're not going to be able to do that in many games in the Premier League because teams will not allow us to do that. But in that particular scenario, and I think maybe in Europe, we would benefit from more of that type of passing. Curtis says, with his madness, I like that. The man definitely creates chaos and he looks much better. I think with Eza, I want to see him more on the left. I need to see him play more on the left-hand side. That's where I want to see Eza playing. And I've been saying this for a long time. I think he gets swallowed up in the midfield. I think he has too many responsibilities that he doesn't do. Odegaard obviously has the press. Eza doesn't necessarily have that same and obviously has the tracking back as well. I want to see Eza unleashed on that left-hand side or in a left 8 position. I think when he's given more license on the left-hand side of this team, we see much more from him. That does mean at times making changes like rotating Trossard or bringing Trossard off and bringing Eza on or bringing Eza off and bringing Trossard on. But we've got so many games that we can't start every player every single game. So we should be trialing things out. I'd love to see a front 3 at a time of Gyökeres, yes, but Saka behind him, Madueke on the right, and Eza on the left. I'd love to see an attacking 3 of Eza on the left, Saka and Madueke, just to see that fluidity and unpredictability kind of combined together. So I'd quite like to see what that looks like. Alfie says suddenly that 5 at the back, 5 at the front, seems more appropriate. Lebuck says, I don't think he has really been better than Eza. In fact, I would argue that Odegaard's best games have come against teams that came out and attacked. I think Villa and Brighton and Bournemouth were those games. But John says you're correct, as Odegaard seems to be our only player capable of doing that. Whereas City have the likes of Foden and Silva, Semenyo, Cherky, Reinders. For me, if we need more like Odegaard to unlock those deep blocks. So it's amazing, back-to-back comments who think entirely different to a point of view, but that's opinions in football, I guess. Nucleic Disaster says, do you not think the plan to play Miles in midfield shows that he has future there? In all honesty, no. I think the reason why Miles was there was because of the injuries to Marino, to Odegaard, and to Kai. And if any of those three players, if Marino especially was fit, Marino would have played that position. If Kai was fit, we probably still would have played Eze and Kai together. So, no, I think it's more down to the injuries that he played there than necessarily the likelihood of a future in that role, because we've just seen so little of it, and we've played against Portsmouth, we've played against Port Vale, and we're not seeing him used in those roles. So I don't think so. Safa says, can you not make your videos that you do on Instagram available on Blue Sky? No, anything I do on Instagram, I'm keeping on Instagram. So if you want to see that stuff, you'll need Instagram, I'm afraid. But sorry, Cheech. It's going to be just exclusively Instagram stuff on Instagram. Elliot says, sorry, Tom. Arteta has shown us the future, and the future is Saka and Havertz in the 10s. The days of Odegaard as our captain are numbered. I don't know why you're sorry, but I appreciate your opinion. And he says, only fear I have is if Saka and Madueke start games together, it increases injury chances again before we've seen this movie many times before. And obviously, if you play with Saka and Madueke together, obviously, where is your depth for the right-hand side? Well, maybe the depth for the right-hand side is a certain Max Dowman coming back. So is that maybe the depth for right wing for the near future, short-term future? I think Dowman's long-term future will be more central, but certainly in the short-term future, is Dowman going to be a potential option for that right wing? I think definitely he has to be considered that. He's that good, needs to play. So, yeah, no doubt about that. Couple more comments before we wrap up this morning. Jerome pointing out that Martinelli can also play there as well. Samuel says, now that there's less debate over Gyökeres, do you see something positive in how much the fan base got behind him despite tough starts? I feel that it shined through the toxicity that we've maybe seen. I think that the one thing you cannot question is how, when you're in the Emirates, the fans in the ground got behind Gyökeres every single time, because that's where it really counts. You can have your opinions, you can have your doubts, you can have your criticisms, you can have your concerns. You're entitled to those things. That's what having free will, free speech is about. You're allowed to have those things. But when it comes to those 90 minutes, when they pull on the red and white, no matter what you think of those players, you get behind them, you back them, you support them. And in that ground, in the Emirates Stadium, that's exactly what happened. And for the records, I think I've been very critical and concerned and worried about Gyökeres. It's up until the turn of the year, really, where things have certainly changed more dramatically, besides that Man United fixture. But overall, I've always, as any Arsenal fan that has been critical or concerned about him, no doubt should have always wanted him to succeed. Because that's all you need to do as an Arsenal fan. All you need to do as an Arsenal fan to be considered an Arsenal fan is want your team, your players, your manager to succeed. That's it. It's really easy to be a fan. Fulfill those 3 requirements, you're an Arsenal fan. Stop doing that, less so. John says, in the points I made, do you think this is why some people are blaming Rice for our lack of creativity and sideways passing, as a centre midfield role is not inventive enough? So this is where I wish I had access on the fly, like FB Ref. You used to get it with that website, but it's less so now. But I think people wildly underestimate Declan Rice and his creative elements. I really, really do. I really feel like there is a sense that his creativity and what he does for the team in those areas is so underappreciated, despite the fact he's clearly our best player. So, yeah, absolutely. I think that Declan Rice's contributions in the middle are wildly underrated. And I think that he kind of becomes a bit of a lightning rod because he's just not that type of Bernardo Silva, Martin Odegaard, creative, flary player. Yeah, and John says, not me, by the way, just in a lot of comments, but I know you were. I know it wasn't about you, but it's just in general, like I just feel as though he is often painted out to be something he isn't. I remember when he first arrived, Declan Rice, and I used to get into debates with people who were obviously massive fans of Thomas Partey's contributions. and there used to be like a debate between Arsenal fans about who should be playing the number 6 role. Arteta obviously had grander ideas than that, but the argument that people would put forward is that Declan Rice doesn't pass forwards. It's just not true. It's just not true at all. Declan Rice drives this team forward. Sure, he gets on the ball more and drives with the ball at his feet maybe more than he passes in that way, but that's just his style. But that does the job as well. And also, if you're driving the ball forwards in possession, you're bringing attention towards you. The more you are in possession while you're moving the ball forwards, you're bringing attention to you. Whereas if you release the ball, the attention moves towards the ball, not towards you. So while you're in possession of the ball, taking that attention away from other players, others around you can move, opens up more spaces, players get pulled out of position, and that's why Rice has had such a positive impact in the midfield balance of this team for me. And so that's why I'm really, really happy that he is always starting every single game in that position. He's just world class. Like, he's just a great all-round player. He's brilliant at everything, really. He doesn't really have many shortcomings at all. I'd like him to score more goals, yes. But he's just such a good all-round player. You know, to use a FIFA analogy, he's like at high 80s in every single stat. So he's like, you know, everyone wants a Ruud Gullit in their team, and I look at Declan Rice and I think if there's ever a potential Ruud Gullit type regen over the next 5 years, I really think that Declan Rice can get to those types of levels as a midfielder. So yeah, for me, I can't speak more highly of Declan Rice, and I always find criticism or concern or scrutiny around him just to be so bizarre, so bizarre. Mark says, I think in the absence of Havertz, any of the three of Martinelli, Saka, or Jesus could play effectively as 10s and maybe improve productivity. Boyce says, everyone outside of England thinks Declan is one of the best in the world. We don't like success in this country, and so it's played down. I don't know if that's like the same or necessarily if I agree about the kind of how in England we look at it, because I think Arsenal fans do rate him very highly. I think England fans rate him very highly, but I think there's like a rivalry element that maybe kind of blurs the conversation a little bit more in a not a very genuine way, if that makes sense. Right. I think with that, we're going to wrap up today's show. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And I'll be back with you tomorrow morning to break down that press conference that is going on later today. There's going to be some big news as well to talk about in tomorrow morning's show. You'll know more about that when it drops. But there's going to be a lot of things to discuss tomorrow, so make sure you're tuning in. I will see you then. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Enjoy yourselves. And as always, up the Arsenal.